Welcome to the 6-year anniversary presentation of Mind, Body, and Flesh. And I am here with Academy Award-winning director. The film is Birdman, Alejandro G. Iñárritu. Good to see you.
Elvis, how are you?
When we talked about putting together this program of the mind and the body and the flesh, we want to do it just because movies move us in so many different kinds of ways and represent so many different poles. And some movies touch on a lot of things, but these were very specific choices that we made, weren't they?
Yeah, I think that when we start this idea, I think it's very difficult always for me as a filmmaker to pick that's the classic question, what is your favorite film? And I think it's impossible, right? You always feel that you are betraying some film that you love, no matter how good you are creating your own films in your head. So I think one thing that is real is that there's films that impact you in different parts of your being, and there are some very physical, some of them that really are intellectually a puzzle, and they trigger a lot of ideas and questions more than anything, and other ones that in a way elevate you and put you in a very, very emotional or question you a lot of things about such kind of a metaphysical order kind of thing, which the experience is much more surreal. And some great films sometimes achieve the three of these things in the same film, which is I think, in the cases of the films that I think we have been presenting and we present 6 years ago, that is the case here. I think many of these films achieve that in some way, or the audience is just, we try to balance them in a way to point out where they were heading more towards, I love that the people really experience all these films that are fascinating in their own terms. And starting with The Spirit, I think one of the most amazing films ever is Dreyer Ordet. I think is one of those films that are almost this masterpiece selection of one of the, and I think the ending of this film is probably one of the miracles in the cinema. And I remember when I saw this film, not only aesthetically, formally, but spiritually to what it's about, the questions that it come. And I will not spoil, but the way where the place that he arrived at the very end, so unpredictable and surprising and poetic, is one of those miracles in cinema.
As we were putting this list together, one of the films I wanted in there that we agreed on was Charles Burnett's Killer of Sheep, because there's nothing more fleshy, more about the flesh than that. And it was a remarkable film because it couldn't be shown for 30 years because he picked all this music that he loved. And for people who have seen Martin Scorsese's film Shutter Island with Leonardo DiCaprio, there's that scene where he's holding that woman's body and he's dancing with it, that's lifted right out of what Charles Burnett did. I mean, that Scorsese saw that shot and said, one way or another, I'm putting that into a movie because nobody's ever going to see Killer of Sheep. Well, we get to see it here in this program. And it also, I think all these films in one way or another are representations of places. I think that's what they all have in common. There's like a real feeling of being in this place where these movies are all centered.
And I think another common thing of the films that people will see during this program is there's a very singular point of view of the directors. There's a lot of humanity, no matter how tough they are or how intellectually challenging they are. They never are cynic, or there's never like an objective kind of point of view. It's always a very immersive, very honest, very personal kind of experience of all those films I found. And those are the films that I really like. Every day I find myself more enjoying, more than the plot, more than the stories, more than the dialogue, more every decision that the directors do. And all these directors, if you analyze the camera movements, the faces they choose, the silences between the dialogue, the clothes, the colors, the sounds, like every decision that is made, the hundreds, sometimes thousands of hundreds decisions in a film that exist, those decisions speak so much of the soul of somebody, and I think the soul of all of these directors, I really love it. I really admire it. I'd like to know them by by the music they hear, by the books they read, by what they believe, you know, and beyond that, oh, the story is cool or not. It's about knowing somebody, like an X-ray of some people's mind and soul and flesh. So anyway, another film that I love is Mother and Son. You know, I think Alexander Sokurov is one of the masters. I think it's a true, I would say, he really, it's kind of as a son of Tarkovsky in a way. He really has that kind of school of a vision of poetry and film as a poet. Point,
see, but I would say that's the thing that probably links all these films too. You talking about not being interested in plot, and these films all exist moment by moment as we're watching them. We don't think about story as we're watching these movies. You don't think about what's going to happen next because we're so lost in each moment. You could say that about Killer of Sheep. You could certainly say that about Mother and Son, or Debt. Or you're talking about these films that also exist as these kind of puzzles. And I think a movie that people will walk out of there talking about, whether you like it or not. And it's definitely a polarizing film, which is why I thought it should be in here, is Last Year Marion Bad.
Yes. What I love about, when I love a film, is not that I remember, oh, what a cool dialogue, or what a great action scene, or no. For me, a film is like a kind of a scent, something that I can't describe, but is there and make me feel some way or trigger me things. Or when you have a great bottle of wine, I cannot describe, but it just, the feeling of the whole thing is just elevated to something that is hard to put in words. There's most of these films that we are talking, they reveal in some moment something mysterious, impossible to put in words, but that make you feel and intrigue you in a way, and you discover something that you can't explain, but elevate you to an emotion that you haven't even navigated inside yourself. And when you go out of the cinema and months has passed and still you remember that feeling that you cannot get back, that you cannot describe, that you cannot write about it, and there's no reason. It's like a dream state, and these kind of films, this spirit moment, this spirit section, I think all these films have exactly that, has that quality. Silent Light from my Mexican friend Carlos Regadas. I think he was very inspired and influenced by Dreyer or Ordet, and has similarities, but is in his own. It's one of the only Mexican films that you will never hear a Mexican word, because it's about the Mennonites living in this northern state of Mexico, and it's a love story in a very silent way. But the title really speaks a lot about it. It's light in silence, and again, it's a heartbreaking love story. Minimal, but again, people will remind this as a dream state.
You were saying though that we have had a lot of films that are in the flesh area of the program, and two of those are by Italian directors. And I know we really struggle as we put this program together. We both said independently of each other, we have to have a film by Marco Bellocchio in this. And what is it about Bellocchio that you respond to?
Well, I think Fist in the Pocket is one of those films that you will never forget. I remember when I saw it, I was so moved and so shocked, and the humanity of his view of these characters is absolutely marvelous. I think that it is such a tough subject that only in the hands of somebody as Bellocchio, which I think he was a philosopher, or he's a philosopher. I think it's just when you are at that level that you can really touch that material to make a film like this. So I think the impact of this film was huge.
And also a film really about silence.
Absolutely, about silence and blindness and family and mercy and to do tough things to do right. So, I mean, the questions there are. And it's questions that are impossible to answer, but just really you are hit by this story in a very impactful way. And another, one of the masters of cinema always has been the Taviani brothers, and I'm so glad that we picked to show again. I'm sure that most of the Italian people will be familiar with Padre Padrone, but the new generations that probably hasn't seen it in a big screen, to enjoy this screen of the Taviani brothers.
I think it's 40 years old this year, that movie.
And I think the theme and what it says, and again, the humanity of this filial relation and what it's about, and the tenderness. There's a kindness always in the Taviani brothers that is and no matter what they are talking, you feel they talk, the compassion in their eyes, in the point of view is absolutely amazing.
And the eagerness to just let these stories tell out in emotional terms rather than plot. I mean, again, both these movies we're talking about here, Fist in the Pocket and Padre Padrone movies, were, for me, again, we're just kind of lost in them. And suddenly the movies are always like, what happened? Why is there not more of them?
Exactly. There's some, but it has to do with the humanity and with the wisdom and I will say the compassion to look characters that even in the weakness or in the worst decisions or moments in their lives, they are observed with somebody who loved them, which is obviously the creators. And that has been obviously substituted by the irony of the pop culture that is now impregnating everything. You have to be disattached, you have to see things objective, you have to be cool about it, you can't be affected, you can't be emotionally involved.
But also the movie has to judge them for us.
Exactly, judge the good, the bad, the cool, the funny, and it has, so that honest human affection has disappeared as the relations has disappeared with many elements that we now play. Which, we think that we are there, but we are not there. And these films really make you feel there, to smell these people, to feel these people, to be engaged emotionally with these people, to live their life, to feel for them. And when it finished, you feel that it's like to read a great novel. You felt that you knew these people perfectly, that you belonged to that family.
I was actually going to say that they feel, to me, both of them, kind of like intimate opera. I mean, because they're really kind of close stories, but there's an epic emotional scale in both of them. We're kind of seeing like all this enormous kind of play of emotion, and we're caught in that kind of emotional current of both of these movies, aren't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an emotional thing. And another thing that I think is important in these films is the faces. So, I mean, as a director, casting is 80% of your job. And I think the non-actors, Taviani things, the faces, they represent humanity. There's no way you cannot empathize with that. Those decisions are the ones that I always in awe, and it's sublime. So
you can say Bellocchio too. He picked these great camera subjects, and you just of course these people should be in front of a camera.
Exactly.
You really felt that.
No, it's absolutely stunning. Anyway, talking about the mind. That you already mentioned last year at Marienbad, that is Alain Resnais, I think, incredible masterpiece, is I Am Cuba, which I think is one of those films that nobody can done it even today. I don't know how these guys did it 50 years ago, but those tracks and those shots and the beauty of it, and yes, it's a propaganda film, but no matter what, it's a beautiful propaganda. It becomes art in the hands of these two guys. So, I mean, I think it's one of the most impressive things. And then I told you that I have just seen A Letter Never Sent. Honestly, I was like blown away. Thanks God I didn't see it before Revenant, because I will be completely humble. And I don't know how these guys shot that, but every frame, everything is perfect. So anyway, I Am Cuba, I think for the people that hasn't seen this film, they will be blown away by it.
So it'll be a film that a new generation of filmmakers can steal from. Be inspired by in the way you were. So we should let people watch films. Alejandro, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you very much.